Good morning, labrīt. We are delighted to welcome you to the conference Culture Matters Here, Cultivating Creative Place-Based Innovation in Non-Urban Communities. This event marks the final chapter of the 4-year international research project In Situ, dedicated to exploring place-based innovation in cultural and creative industries in non-urban areas. A warm welcome to our 130 participants from 28 countries. It's wonderful to see such a diverse and international community gathered here today. Let me briefly introduce myself. My name is Ieva, and I'm from the Latvian Academy of Culture, and I will be guiding you through these 3 exciting days. So, at the opening of the conference, we would like to hear greetings from the Latvian Minister of Culture, Agnese. Please, video.
Dear participants, organizers, partners, and guests, it is a great pleasure to greet you at the opening of the conference Culture Matters Here, Cultivating Creative Place-Based Innovation in Non-Urban Communities. The theme of this conference is highly relevant for Latvia, for Europe, and for many communities beyond major urban centers. We are living through a period of profound change. Population decline, urbanization, climate crisis, limited resources, and unequal access to services, they all require us to review existing development models and look for more comprehensive solutions. Sustainable development must include economic and environmental dimensions, as well as social and cultural sustainability, belonging, trust, participation, local identity, collective memory, and people's ability to shape their future together. This is where culture matters. In small and medium-sized towns, rural areas, and borderland communities, culture is often one of the strongest foundations of local vitality. The cultural and creative sectors are becoming increasingly important. They strengthen identity, engage communities, support economic regeneration, improve the quality of the living environment. Creativity is a strategic resource. The quality of experience is also essential. People become attached to places through emotions, senses, relationships, and memories. A well-designed cultural experience can change the relationship between people and a place. It can help residents see their neighborhood as a source of value. This approach is especially important for resilience. Resilience means the ability to maintain the energy of a place, keep trust and social ties alive, strengthen participation, and build confidence in the future. For Latvia, this question is both personal and strategic. The strength of our country has always been linked to places where culture sustains community. It is the foundation of Latvia's cultural space and independence. This is where we can see very clearly how culture contributes to well-being, democratic participation, and societal resilience. Just last week, I was in Valmiera County for the National Art Award, where I met local activists who are preparing to take over an abandoned quarter and bring life back into unused spaces. I saw how important it is for people to come together through art events and to highlight the heritage of their community. This is why this conference matters. It brings stakeholders together to think about how culture can support livable, creative, and resilient places beyond large urban centers. I would like to thank the Latvian Academy of Culture, the Center for Social Studies of the University of Coimbra, the European Network of Cultural Centers, Culture Action Europe, all In Situ project partners, Valmiera County Municipality, and Vidzeme University of Applied Sciences for making this conference possible. I wish you inspiring discussions, bold ideas, and practical conclusions. Thank you.
Thank you to the Minister for her inspiring words. I also know that we have at least 10 representatives from Latvia's Ministry of Culture with us today here. Thank you very much for your interest and continued engagement. And now it's my pleasure to invite Rūta Muktu-Pāvela, former rector of the Latvian Academy of Culture, advisor on culture policy to the Minister for Culture of Latvia, and professor at the Latvian Academy of Culture, to share a few words on the Academy's international ambitions.
Thank you, Ieva. Thank you. Thank you. Dear guests and colleagues, I'm not sure about rector. I cannot see her, but okay, she will be later. So on behalf of the Latvian Academy of Culture and its rector, Professor Simanis, it is my pleasure and honor to welcome you all at the final international conference of the European Commission Research Programme, Horizon Euro project, In Situ. Culture Matters Here, Cultivating Creative Place-Based Innovation in Non-Urban Communities. This conference is special for the Latvian Academy of Culture because it takes place at the time of its 35th anniversary celebration. During these years, the Academy has become a leading interdisciplinary public university specializing in cultural studies, performative and audiovisual arts, cultural sociology, and creative industries. We are proud that the Academy has such a high internationally convertible research capacity, which is evidenced not only by leading of national research programs, elaborating projects of fundamental and applied sciences, but also by participation in international consortia, including the European University Alliance, AC2E2. Being a part of the Horizon Europe program, In Situ has brought together a unique European consortium of 13 partners from 12 countries, and now I had 28 altogether with the partners all over Europe, namely, and the world. And yes, now we have also partners in Portugal, Ireland, Belgium, Netherlands, France, Spain, Croatia, Finland, Iceland, Bulgaria, Germany, and Latvia, of course. During those 4 years, In Situ has acted as a bridge between research and practice by combining theory with place-based experiments and capacity building in non-urban regions. The results of the project have reminded us that cultural and creative industries in non-urban territories can be a central player, which makes a significant contribution to innovation, sustainability, and resilience of local communities, and thus to the national states and the whole Europe. Despite the concrete and convincing project results achieved, In Situ also offers solutions to much greater contemporary challenges. What I mean is that we live in the era of megalomaniac visions, destructive ambitions, and irresponsible geopolitical actions, which lead to erosion of democratic and humanistic values. As a real salvation in moments of such kind of global insanity, culture and the sense of local belonging become a support to reduce uncertainty and to create meanings for simple face-to-face communication, empathic attitude, and resource-sharing practices that does not obey to market logic, thus becoming the cornerstone of resilience and peaceful coexistence. Local communities are the ones which remind us that meaningful development must begin with people and places, not with formal guidelines and numbers alone. Here I would like to remind us the ideas of ecologist and philosopher David Abram. Then in responding to the excesses of the Anthropocene, or more precisely, the Capitalocene, we might move towards what he calls the Humilocene, from human, humus, humble, and humility. Humilocene, a time of greater humility in which we must acknowledge the injustices and abuses of the Capitalocene on nature, on earth, and humanity on the whole. So we must learn to regain a deeper awareness of the beauty and irreducible otherness of the modern human world around us. In this context, transdisciplinarity and transdisciplinary ways of knowing provided by In Situ project become extremely essential. It reminds academic institutions that knowledge does not belong to universities alone, that we, researchers and academics, must be ready to learn from the lived experience, practical wisdom, and creative intelligence of local communities. A transdisciplinary approach helps to reveal that resilience actually looks like how resilience actually looks like on the ground, and how cultural and creative practices can support it in everyday life. In this sense, In Situ invites the academic world not only to listen more carefully and share authority, but also to recognize the long-term sustainability and resilience in Europe depend on learning with not only about local communities. As a member of academic field, I greatly appreciate that this conference features internationally recognizable scholars, including Susan Luckman, Timothy Vaughan, Judy Ortiz, and Nancy Duxbury, whose work has significantly shaped international debates on culture, creativity, and regional development. At the same time, as a representative of the Latvian Academy of Culture, I would like to express gratitude to the researchers of our institution who have contributed to In Situ over these 4 years: Ilona Asere, Baiba Tiarva, Ieva Zemite, Ilona Kunda, and Laura Brutane. Their dedication, expertise, and long-term commitment have been crucial for the project work in Latvia and for building bridges between international research and regional cultural practice. They have helped to ensure that the insights generated by In Situ are not only written in reports, but are rooted in real cooperation with partners in Valmiera County and beyond. Applauses to you. And of course, I would like to thank all partners and also to our outreach partners for your engagement and support, for invaluable collaboration, dedication, and shared commitment. And of course, our sincere gratitude goes to Valmiera municipality for its support, trust, and collaboration throughout the project and for hosting this final conference. We warmly thank Vidzeme University of Applied Sciences for its cooperation and hospitality in providing the setting for our discussions. Dear colleagues and friends, this conference marks the end of the project. But it's clear, it's also a start, beginning of new relationships, new ideas, and new responsibilities. If culture truly matters here, then may our time together in Valmiera strengthen our resolve to make it matter even more clearly, more justly, and more visibly in every community and every country we represent. Wishing you a meaningful, inspiring, and successful conference. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So, as Professor mentioned, the Latvian Academy of Culture celebrates its 35th anniversary this year. Our host, Vidzeme University of Applied Science, is marking its 30th anniversary. And now it's my pleasure to give the floor to André Kleppers, professor and leading researcher and director of the Institute at the Vidzeme University of Applied Science. Please, André.
Good morning and welcome, dear guests. It's really my pleasure to meet you here in Valmiera, in Vidzeme University of Applied Sciences. And you already heard my family name, Kleppers, which means in Latvian literally old horse. Old is a privilege of wisdom, and we know a lot we know here in the university, but we know a lot about our culture, about our history, about our places. And this is definitely one of the roles for universities to share that and also to make an impact, for policymakers, to make an impact on communities, on entrepreneurs and different other stakeholders. Old horse means another thing, that if we think about the Latvian traditional culture, mythology and folklore and other disciplines, they exclusively come from the rural areas. We are so connected with the countryside, with nature, with the rhythm of the nature, so that we can trace all kind of path dependency, how we have lived like 330 generations here in this area. It's a lot. So we gave our knowledge from generation to generation, and just the last 800 years, it's a written history. So this is something where we make a bit bigger, let's say, comprehensive overview of the Europe as it looks today. Because living here in Valmiera, it's served like a micro city. And we like that size. Micro city means that we do the same as Glasgow in Scotland or maybe Cologne in Germany. Valmiera with 27,000 inhabitants should be the regional capital. And this is what we like in Europe. Specifically in Europe, we like small towns, we like micro cities, we like villages. And this is different from other continents because we don't have really huge megapolis so that all the people would like to live there. Still, from Europe today, 20% of inhabitants live in rural countryside. 10% of Latvians live in lonely farmsteads. This is something very unique from our lifestyle. You will find out through some discoveries and speeches in the next 3 days. And that is something really exclusive, because living in that countryside environment, we still do a lot from that path dependency, from that tradition, what our ancestors did. And I would like that you really discover that diversity of the countryside, diversity of the micro-city, diversity of our region. And I think that it's not a shame to be small, like micro-city or just one small community. Maybe it's difficult in our times to be isolated. So we need to be connected. We need to have community, really working community. And I'm very thankful that you have chosen our region to host this important conference, to host that event in our university. I'm very thankful to Latvian Academy of Culture for our very good partnership in research. And this is very strategic and important notice for our regional development as well, that such a big events could happen here. So this is really compliment to you, traveling to Valmiera, trying internationally to search where is this place located, how to get there. It's complicated. We absolutely appreciate that, because this is the Europe and its countryside. This is the micro city. Welcome, and I wish you really good days forward.
Thank you, André. We are grateful to the Valmiera County Municipality for hosting this conference. Over the coming days, you will have the opportunity to get to know Valmiera and its culture and creative sector a little better. I warmly encourage you not to miss the evening's event at the Valmiera Theatre, where the mayor of Valmiera, Jānis Baigs, will share a few words with us. And tomorrow afternoon, you will have a chance to explore further through 4 excursions. Whether your interests lie in cultural heritage, contemporary art initiatives, creative industries, or rural culture, the choice is yours. But now, without further delay, I would like to invite the driving force behind this project, the idea generator and in situ project leader, Nancy Duxbury, who will introduce us to the main ideas behind the conference. The floor is yours.
You're much taller. There we go. Okay. Thank you. Wow, it's almost a full house. So good morning and welcome. On behalf of the In Situ Consortium, thank you for your presence and your tenacity to get here from wherever you're coming from. And welcome to the final conference of the In Situ project, Culture Matters Here, Cultivating Creative Place-Based Innovation in Non-Urban Communities, in Valmiera, Latvia, which is one of our 6 lab areas within the project. As you know and you've heard, this conference is organized within the Horizon Europe project In Situ, Place-Based Innovation of Cultural and Creative Industries in Non-Urban Areas, which has been underway since July 2022 and continues on to the end of June. So it's not quite done yet. We still have 6 deliverables due at the end of June. So this is a huge milestone in our journey. And we are very grateful for the support of the European Commission to allow us to embark on this amazing journey. In a moment, I will speak more about In Situ, so now I'll just focus on this event. During the conference, you'll hear about the wide variety of work that's been conducted within the project from our array of consortium partners and some of the insights generated. You will also hear from over 50 other culture-based research projects and initiatives underway. And thank you for all of you who have come here with us. We are thrilled that the event has attracted such an amazing array of participants and interests. We always dreamed that these conferences would be more than just about the In Situ project, but would be an umbrella to learn also what is happening out there. And it's been amazing to see the response. Since 2022, we have witnessed a gradual rise in the attention to cultural and creative industries and creative work in non-metropolitan areas, from the introduction of the European Union's Rural Pact to the successful launch of a community group on culture and community and creativity in rural areas. You'll hear more as the conference unfolds. We've also seen many new research articles appear and learned about lots of PhD theses on culture in rural areas that are underway now. We've seen cultural and creative practitioners become ever more visible through an array of networks that are becoming more, have been developed and are also sub-networks of existing European networks. And we've been very fortunate to have some of them present to you during this conference. We also noticed that there's been a growing rise of interest among regional and municipal authorities in cultivating cultural and creative work and workers in their communities. However, we have also seen that there aren't a lot of opportunities for them to connect with one another yet. And we also understand that space for interconnecting these different spheres, the researchers, the cultural practitioners, and the municipalities, et cetera, really don't exist very much. And so we really are hoping, and they're just emerging, so we're really hoping that this conference can be an important moment and a momentum in that connecting and knowledge sharing, networking, and co-creating future possibilities. In this spirit, of course, we created the conference as an umbrella, as a meeting place for exchanging knowledges, experiences, and concerns and as it's turned out, from different parts of the world, from creative practitioners, from researchers, from municipal and regional authorities, and all together here. So thank you again for your efforts to get here. And I'm very excited to see what will unfold. I have no particular conclusions that I want to reach at the end of the conference, so it's a wide open field. So network away. I'm extremely grateful for everyone who's attended, who's contributed to this conference and its creation, and who will be contributing in the next few days. Thank you. And a thank you to the European Network of Cultural Centers, one of our partners within In Situ, and the Culture Action Europe, as event co-organizers, their networks have enabled us to bring more practitioners to plenary sessions and for the entire conference, including some of the networks I mentioned of cultural practitioners. Thank you to the members of the In Situ Consortium, who I see a few faces. I think almost everyone's here. As you've heard, 13 partners across 12 countries, who you will meet in the various plenary sessions to come, as well as your moderators in various sessions. Thank you to the SEJ team. Where are they hiding? Paola and Sylvia, and Maria is somewhere taking pictures, I can't imagine how many things have been juggled, particularly in the last week, and for the creative spirit as they tenaciously organize so many little details of the program and put you into sessions that hopefully you'll find alliances with others that you're presenting with. And last but not least, thank you to the incredible team from the Latvian Academy for Culture, particularly Ieva, Ilona, who's over there, and Daiga, who may be outside, I'm not sure, who have really led the team and the organization of this event, and in particular who accepted our challenge in 2022 to say, would you please host the final conference of the In Situ project? And they went, yes, that's okay. And so that's been, I'm really grateful for that. And they have brought it to life. And they've taken on, as you have been emailed, all of the registration and the logistical and many hosting responsibilities that are so important to have us here today, including flowers and everything. And they have done so in a very collaborative way that has included very many local partners who have been thanked and maybe thanked some more, who I'm not going to attempt the pronunciation of these organizations, but we're really grateful for the municipality and the university here to bring us on board and welcome us enthusiastically to be here. So, and for most of the members of the In Situ Consortium, this is their first time in Valmiera as well. We organized the project so that we had 6 meetings in the 6 lab areas, and this is our introduction to Valmiera, along with the rest of you. So, thank you very much.
Thank you, Nancy. So a quick practical note. The main sessions are being broadcast via the In Situ Project's YouTube and Facebook channels. So if you miss anything, recordings on the main session will be available after the conference as well. So also we would be very grateful if you could share your impressions and insights using the hashtags In Situ and Culture Matters here. And now we are moving to our first plenary session of the day, titled Unpacking the IN SITU Legacy, Research, Capacity Building and Policy. We are honored to have with us today an excellent panel of speakers. Nancy Duxbury, Center for Social Studies of the University of Coimbra, Portugal. Lidia Varbanova, National Academy of Theatre and Film Arts, Bulgaria. André, National Institute for Agriculture, Food and Environment, France. And Helen Walter, University of Hildesheim, Germany. And our session will be moderated by Paola di Nunzio. Please join me in welcoming our speakers and moderator.
Hello and welcome. Ieva has a very difficult task today, which is pronouncing name and surnames of a lot of people from a lot of different countries, and the first 4 went very well. So, an applause to Ieva. And so she already introduced the speakers and myself, and so I will jump straight into the aim of this session, which is to introduce you to the In Situ project, so understanding who we are, why we do it, and what we aim to achieve in the last 4 years of the project development. But in particular, as we are in the final stretch of the project, also present some key results, highlights, and lessons learned from the 3 main strands of our work that, as the title gives away, are research, capacity building, and policy. So the objective of this session is not to say it all already. See, this is only the beginning of a 3-day journey, but rather to provide some initial sparks of reflection and food for thought that will further be explored and tackled through the conference and the plenaries. So this is the reason why the session will be a 45-minute session with 30 minutes of presentations and a quick 10 minutes round of questions and answers from the audience. Maybe it's not too much to clarify doubts and satisfy the curiosity, but as I said, this is only an overview, and you will have time during the conference to ask questions and further explore and talk with our speakers. So, having all this in mind, I cannot think of anybody else most well-suited for the objective of introducing you to the In Situ project than the speakers that we have here. They've already been presenting, so with no further ado, I will invite Nancy, the first speaker, here to join me and start with the presentation. Thank you.
And we get to try the clicker. Okay. I was told to speak for 11 minutes. It may work that way. We will see. I'm going to provide a really quick overview of the project and some of the highlights of some of the research that was conducted. As you can imagine, it's a very large and complex and lots of project with lots of participants and contributions, and I cannot do justice to any of that research right at this moment. But you will hear more and more about it as the conference unfolds. So why In Situ? We started because we knew that cultural and creative work in non-urban, non-metropolitan centers was growing gradually in visibility and significance internationally, but that there had been very little attention from research or policy to any of this. And so there was a neglect of its knowledge and the lack of knowledge on needs, characteristics, and its potential. And this makes it a vulnerable enterprise. In parallel, we discovered that the same situation was for innovation, existed for innovation, where the examples, the approaches, everything was urban-centered and very economically focused, but emerging ideas and observations before In Situ launched started to suggest that innovation processes in rural areas were different than those in cities. And so we started with these 2 sort of empty vacuums with little bits of information, but very little. And in non-urban areas, we found that because cultural actors, enterprises, ecosystems were generally under-recognized and under-researched, there were huge data gaps, knowledge deficits, and partial glances where someone would do research on a place, on a particular focus, and then it would go somewhere else. And there'd be little glimmers of knowledge, but nothing comprehensive. There was no comprehensive knowledge base. And for those institutions like municipalities, like regional authorities, or other foundations or universities that wanted to help with this production, help with to make cultural activities vibrant in their communities, there was no guidance. So in this vacuum, we have In Situ, and we are thrilled that it was real. It became real. This has our website and that sort of thing. You've heard a little bit about the project, so I won't say much now. I did want to say a few words on the terminology because we've been tripping over it since the beginning. First of all, cultural and creative industries incorporate anything that's culture-based, artist-based, heritage initiatives, trying to break out the silos that usually exist within this kind of sector. And we're happy to hear that increasingly that term is going away and it's more about sectors. And we adopted ecosystems, cultural and creative ecosystems, where the edges may not be totally firm to only be creatives, but other allies and communities. Non-urban areas is another area, another term that people have been angry about. Basically, we are looking at regions. So those regions can be rural, remote, have small towns, villages, small cities that are anchors of that region. Basically, we're extra metropolitan areas, places outside of big centers where culture is assumed, cultural and creativity is assumed to be. And innovation is our third big term, where we learned that looking at innovation from a technologically focused lens really doesn't work, and that we had to adopt an increasingly broad definition that encourages thinking about the many types of innovation in non-urban areas, valuing social and organizational change, community engagement, and cross-sectoral experimentation rather than focusing on technology. I think I have to speed up. The objectives of the project is really to both from a research perspective and a practice-based perspective, to understand the forms, processes, and governance needs of cultural and creative actors located in non-urban areas of Europe, but at the same time, really to advance the ability of these cultural creators in these regions to be drivers of their community's development and futures. We have, as you've heard many times, 13 consortium partners across 12 countries. I'll just skip along, as well as an array of European and international outreach partners that help, we hope, make this a seed of a larger international discussion about the importance of cultural work in non-metropolitan areas, as well as our international advisory board. And here you'll meet Susan, Jude, and Tim. As you've seen, this in situ, a lot of the work of the in situ project has been based in 6 lab regions across Europe: the Azores Archipelago of Portugal, the western coastal periphery of Ireland, the west region of Iceland, Roma and Jurioki of the west coast and Baltic Sea Archipelago in Finland, Valmiera County, Latvia, and Šibenik County, Croatia. The project itself has been generally organized around realized in 3 main areas: research, capacity building, and policy and planning recommendations. The idea is that we're developing new knowledge, but we really hope to leave the grounds much better when the project completes than when it started, and that there's a legacy going forward for future development. And so it's much more than a research project. And my colleagues will speak about the capacity building and policy part, so I'll just focus a few points on research. It's definitely very multidisciplinary, multi-layered, and community engaged whenever possible. We have 3 levels of research. We have a series of macro research reports that are all available for free on our website, which in some cases are statistically oriented, taking out what can we know, what do we know, what are the gaps of knowledge. Some are cross-lab surveys put together, but they're really that macro view of Europe. The second aspect is the lab-focused research and the community-engaged research actions in the labs. This has included cultural mapping exercises, SWOT analysis, focus groups, many interviews, numbers of surveys, and collectively developed timelines of change in each area, and you'll hear more about that from those that were in the central of that area, centrally located there. In addition, we have case studies. So within case studies that are taking creative approaches to local issues that were identified by the communities themselves, we have 2 case studies in each of the 6 regions. Just saying. I don't know if the two from Valmiera are here. Oh, yes. One of them is here. Is Sabine here? And so either you are. Okay, they're both here. Good. All working on incredible projects through which we have learned and went through the journey with them of initiating, in many cases, brand new enterprises in an area that's completely new to what's been there before, and learning about how that happens, what are the challenges, and what are the opportunities, and it's been really incredible, and you'll hear more from them. Where's Paul? Okay, she's not ready to shut me off yet, so. Oh, okay. So I'm just going to give you a few highlights of all of the work that's been done. I didn't count how many deliverable reports we've done, but we found, I have three sort of general themes that we've adopted to try to sort out some of the information. In terms of indicators and metrics, how do you measure, how do you identify cultural, creative industry innovation in non-urban areas? We first of all discovered a real mismatch between the traditional innovation metrics, which is usually patents, and rural reality. In particular, we discovered that trademarks are much more indicative of innovative things happening in general in rural areas, and collective trademarks are really an area that can create a platform for multi-sectoral collaboration and value added, but the research is really scattered in so many different disciplines that it's really an emerging area to look at. And of course, this is only the tip of the iceberg. There's lots of innovation and lots of activity that happens that nobody gets trademarks or that sort of thing for, but that's that world. So we really did discover what can we get from what's existing already. We also discovered that no single metric can adequately capture cultural development in regional areas, that regions follow very diverse paths, that traditional economic indicators fail to capture the hidden social values that underpin regional development, and that participatory, community-engaged research and reflexive monitoring research approaches were really invaluable to be able to start to make those other non-economic values and dynamics visible in our research. In terms of cultural work in regional development, vitality, and vulnerabilities, we have found that rural cultural work is really, at least the ones that we've been exposed to, which are in these 6 areas, is highly driven by social issues and place stewardship. The image of an artist in a studio isolated from its society doesn't exist in what we have located, and there's always a place connection. There's a strong spirit of collaboration rather than competition, and that the initiatives are often led by passionate individuals and grassroots initiatives. However, we also see an over-reliance on volunteerism and this passion-driven labor, which makes sometimes unsustainable working conditions and leads to a fragility of the cultural ecosystems. If someone burns out, there isn't usually someone to take their place. Sustaining collaborative networks, both within the cultural creative sector and more generally in the society, is of great importance. But we've also noticed that the institutional support that's necessary to really make those vibrant and living is currently lacking. And we also found, and you'll hear more, that cultural and creative work is a foundational infrastructure for regional development as a core of broader regional development. However, within that sector, we, of course, have found vulnerabilities, and you'll hear more in the policy presentations, and that there is also a lack of physical infrastructure, which is a primary bottleneck in further growth. And third, we also looked at development trajectories for cultural and creative industries, et cetera, in non-urban areas. We found that looking at diversification pathways, cultural and creative activities are central to the economic structure of peripheral regions, and this makes them an important stepping stones, plural, for diversification dynamics in non-urban regions. And we also identified a wide range of opportunity spaces for cultural and creative workers in non-urban areas to consider going forward that would be using the local specificities and resources in a way that can bring value and builds on the assets that are there in these types of regions. However, we didn't only look at the economic development of the sector, and in reflections and wonderful book chapters that were written on each of the labs, we definitely came out with this culture matters here conclusion. For so many reasons, culture is a foundation of meaning, of connecting, of inspiration, and as a resource for building forward in many different ways in these. It's definitely not a city-centric owned activity, and if anything, with our research from the very many different areas in which it was done has confirmed that culture matters here. Done. And honored to.
I'm excited being here. It's my second time in Valmiera and already feel the colleagues and the friends like part of our extended family, which is amazing, and my fifth time in Latvia. We are so lucky today. We even brought the sun together with our joint energy and amazing experiences from so many countries. How do I move this? Oh, maybe the green button? The green button. So you see our first coming to Valmiera with the training seminars, which some of you also participated. For 7 minutes, I'm going to walk you through something incredible, which was part of In Situ, as you heard from Nancy, which is the capacity building. So I'm going to give you 3 key results and very quickly 8 kind of lessons learned or things which we really discovered. The first result was our training in all these 6 areas, which you also heard from Nancy. What we did, we delivered seminars, workshops. They were tailored to the local needs. We didn't invent them. We were having a broad research together with our lab partners to try to find out what our colleagues in these areas need. So these 6 training thematic clusters were mainly based on funding, fundraising, storytelling, audience development, also a lot of collaboration, networking, as well as sustainability leadership, and something very important, social and business entrepreneurship. So what we made as a legacy, we believe, is that we created these learning communities which later on are going to continue on their own, and we try to strengthen the local and regional creative ecosystems. On some of the photos, you see our very inspiring and interactive sessions, because it was not just lecturing. We were having a lot of role-playing, a lot of interactive games, a lot of discussions in smaller groups, which we believed were connecting the theory, research, and the local practices. Some more wonderful collage of photos from Azores, Portugal, and also in Burganes, Iceland, just to give you an idea that this were really very much interactive collaboration with the local and international partners. The second key result was the mentoring process, because the capacity building part of In Situ was having these 2 main dimensions. One was the training, the collaborative seminars and sessions, workshops, and the second one was the mentoring of these 12 incredible case studies which we identified in these 6 areas. So what we try to do is to have a hybrid model of mentoring online and also offline. So we were visiting some of those case studies, and then we try to have this tailored mentoring so that we help them to really go from a project-based thinking and action to something which is much more sustainable and long-term. So we try to support them in strategic positioning, organizational development, a lot of funding and fundraising discussions, audience engagement, partnership building. So our approach was to really try to look at their needs and their future visions, and to help them with the capacity of the consortium partners to move further. Each one of those case studies had 2 or 3 mentors, which helped them in a maybe year and a half or 2, online and offline, to move further. So we believe with this mentoring part that we exchange this international and local knowledge and experience in many of those areas. And again, you also see some of our visits to these places. On the slide, you see the Icelandic Lulelats, which emerged from the Dali region, an amazing case study from Iceland. Then here you see our visit to Finland, to Rauma, with the footprint on a giant case study, and also from the geek to the audience case study visiting Nin, Croatia. So there are a lot of interesting results, and you can read this in the methodological guidance for capacity building, which NATFIZ elaborated together with our consortium partners, which is online. So please go on the IN SITU website and try to look at this really key result of what we did in mentoring and training, because it combines theory and practice. It gave a lot of transferable methods and tools about both mentoring and training, and it also focused on place-based training and includes very many interactive mentoring models and examples. I represent NATFIZ, the National Academy of Theatre and Film Arts, as I said, and my colleague Nevena is also with me. So we were working very hard on this comprehensive methodological guidance, which we believe is one of the legacies which we left. And the third result is the 4 educational videos, which we did together with my colleague Emma Konstantinova from NATFIZ, who is also a very prominent filmmaker in the country. So these 4 case studies are about fundraising, financing, about collaboration and partnership, about social and business modeling, and also entrepreneurship, plus tips for strategic cooperation and networking in the non-urban areas. So these videos are also available online on the IN SITU website and also on the YouTube channel. We believe they're going to be used for educators, trainers, especially creative hubs and also self-directed learners in many areas. And by the way, some colleagues also use them, and they gave us a quite positive result. These are really kind of micro learning resources, because they're like 12 or 13 minutes long, and they contribute and they add a value, we believe, to what we did with the training. Interesting thing was that we elaborated these videos together with our colleagues, and we had a meeting also in Borganes in Iceland in June as a brainstorming session to elaborate these videos. So some of our colleagues are going to also see themselves as part of the videos. So finally, 1 minute for the exciting lessons learned. I'm not going to pass through all, because it was really amazing experience with a lot of energy from everybody. Also people in the room who attended and participated very actively in this capacity building part of IN SITU. They know how much we really left and how much we experienced together. Some key lessons learned. One is that the small places can become a very powerful innovation for social entrepreneurial ecosystems. And as Nunzio also emphasized, we have all these social entrepreneurs in these regions. Even the 12 case studies, they are social entrepreneurs. Even at the beginning of the project, they were very much kind of puzzling themselves. Are we entrepreneurs? And yes, they are, because they make change. They are the change makers of the social environment in these areas. Capacity building is not only about skills. It's really about gradual, ongoing transformation. And we also really saw this in the almost 4 years of development of this project. Training and mentoring are more effective when they are adapted to local realities, traditions, identities, challenges, because what we did was really to listen from the localities and then to try to help them. The 4th key lesson learned is that the hybrid learning really expands the participation in inclusion. It has a lot of challenges to be able to teach and to moderate online and offline together, also including some technical challenges and the ability of the trainers to do that, but we try to really do it and expand the sessions much beyond this region. And by the way, these are photos from my personal very large photo album, which I did from all these places. Another 4, the interactive methods create deeper engagement and knowledge sharing. As I said, it was not just lecturing, a lot of interaction, a lot of joint collaboration in smaller groups and other ways of peer learning helped us to really learn from each other. Mentoring build long-term resilience and mutual trust. Network and partnership building matter as much as funding, something very important because people give to people and people help to people. It's not just about money. Money is important, but then also ideas and networking and sharing is something much more important. The capacity building process must be continuous and long-term. So it was not like a snapshot and then leaving. We strongly believe that we're going to continue the conversation and the joint efforts further. So finally, let's remember that the non-urban areas are not places of limitation, but they're places of creativity, experimentation, and loads of possibilities. And the sustainable cultural ecosystems are built through people, relationship, trust, and long-term support. So thanks very much, and I'm here all these 3 days, so if you have further questions, please don't hesitate to invite me for a coffee or then to join me for a drink, so I'm going to pay for it and tell you more. Thank you so much.
Hello, everybody. I will not be as efficient and dynamic as Lidia. I cannot sustain the level, but I will try to be shorter. So I will try to speak with you about something more austere, but which is interesting. It's money and its founding. And it's about the policies, and especially the EU policies regarding creative and cultural industries. And why I'm asking this question? Because the question that we ask in situ framework was, are those policies really suited to cultural and creative industries? So I will spoil the response. The response is, so, not so well. And why? Because if we look at creative and cultural industries in non-urban areas, we'll see that they are obviously directly linked to innovation. But this innovation, obviously, is not really technological innovation, but it is institutional, social, organizational innovation, and it's very, very important. And we discovered and we show that CCIs are really drivers of innovation in non-urban or in rural areas. And what is even most important, not only they are the drivers, but they are the connectors. So this means that these industries are able to connect various domains like heritage, tourism, cultural activities and so on, and put them together and organize them in a very innovative way. And this is the most important thing. And together, they create local creative ecosystems, which means that we have ecosystems of cultural and creative industries at the local level, which are bounded geographically, but which are made of different types of cultural and creative activities linked together. And those activities are really, really important at the local level, but they remain underdeveloped. And there is a lack of hybrid networks across those sectors, and also they lack recognition. So those creative and cultural activity, they are really central to non-rural and urban area, and non-urban and rural areas, sorry. And at the same time, they are often developed in silos. What do I mean by that? It's that usually when you think about cultural and creative industries or the remaining or the side industries, you think about culture, video, tourism, heritage, museums, things like that. They are siloed in different type of sectors. And this is a huge problem, but nowadays, the 21st century, and especially in the 20s, a huge change is underway. And this change is that there is a shift towards place-based, ecosystemic, and inclusive cultural action and good practices. And this shift, is it taken into account by EU policies? As I told you, more or less. Because if we look at the innovation policies, and why do we look to innovation policies? Because those innovation policies, they are funding a lot of cultural and creative activities, a lot. And there are two main drivers, I will say, and two main ways for financing cultural and creative activities in non-urban and rural areas. One is about Lidia in the Common Agricultural Policy. There are a lot of things which are done there. And in this respect, those policies, they are taking into account bottom-up activities and connectors and connection between different types of cultural activity. And the main important driver is the so-called S3, which means smart specialization strategies. And those smart specialization strategies, they are supposed to be regionalized, they are supposed to be place-based, they are supposed to take into account innovation, but mainly, they are quite in difficulty to finance cultural and creative activities in non-urban and rural areas, because they are mainly concentrated on technological innovation, to say that very rapidly. So if we come back now to those two types of policies, we see that when they are devoted to cultural and creative industry, not only they miss a part of the problem because they are concentrated on technological innovation, but on the other hand, as well, they are siloed, as I told you. So this means that they concentrated on different types of sectors, and they really hesitate or they failed to finance connectivity or to finance the so-called ecosystems. That's the first problem. And the second problem is that they failed to connect between different regions or different places. So this is a pity, because just to give you an example, when there is a good practice in a rural place, for example, regarding CCIs, it is not transferred properly. So the policies do not help to transfer properly between different places. And this is a problem, and this is, obviously, an issue. So this means that the cooperation between different government levels and the European governance is flawed in the end. And it hindered what we call the absorption capacity, which means the possibility for one place to have an inspiration from good practices which have been invented in another place, because usually it is not known. So it means mainly the EU doesn't allow the possibility to share those common and this very interesting knowledge. So just to finish, for the territorial specificities, obviously the one-size-fits-all cultural policies are inadequate to address the specificities of individual places, and in particular those innovation policies, which are so important in terms of foundings. They lack coordination between sectors on the one hand and between places on the other hand. So there is a need, probably, but we'll speak about that at the end of a Congress, there is a need to develop a territorialized approach to innovation and cultural policy, and also there is a need to support collaborative innovation system at the local level, and also the collaboration between different places and region. So, thank you very much.
Hi. My name is Helena. I'm here. Well, they said it's the green button, and now there are 2 green buttons. Yeah, nice, thanks. A little challenge for me in the morning. I'm representing the cultural policy team. Stepping away is not good from the mic, I just realized, and wanted to present you a bit more of how we worked on the cultural policy research topic. And we had these 3 different parts of methodology. First was a literature research, a field research, and a lot of interviews we did. And to be a bit more precise, literature research included scientific literature on cultural policy, on rural areas, but as well on the gender dimension. I think that's very important to point out that In Situ had this gender dimension incorporated in the project. And I'm actually very glad that I was able to do the research on it. And I will come back to that point later. The field research we did, we were able to visit all the 6 lab areas and did field research there, got in touch with a lot of different people, met local actors as well as policy makers, and there you see the different dimensions of the In Situ project, that we worked on different levels together with actors, but as well with policymakers on local, on national, and on EU level. So again, another important thing to point out about the In Situ project, I think. And the interview series, there as well, we worked together on those different levels, actors, different policymakers. And to come back on the gender dimension, I was able to do interviews both for cultural policy, but also for the gender dimension. And I found that it really opens up a dialogue. It helped connecting with some people that kind of thought about gender dimension, but didn't dig deep in it yet, I kind of say. So this opened a very good and productive discourse on the topic of gender, which is actually then connecting to Lidia's capacity building, because in one case, for example, there was this connection built through a gender topic interview, and we could, in the mentoring process, kind of come back to that, and it really showed how the 3 types, or the 3 different approaches, I would say, come together and kind of intertwine with each other. We also did focus groups, a lot of them together with INRAE on the innovation. So there again, you had this connection of culture and innovation policy, which really well went together. And I also want to close with key findings. And I kind of think you heard all of that by now, but maybe to add it from the cultural policy perspective, I agree with André that CCIs foster transformation and innovation. So while current policies rarely recognize or involve non-urban CCIs as drivers of innovation, but focus on tourism and heritage instead, CCIs have a great potential in foster, for example, social cohesion, innovation, and strength local democracy. Realities can vary greatly. That applies on the region themselves. So the 6 research areas are, of course, very different from one each other, even though they share, for example, challenges, but also within those areas, communities or locations vary greatly, and with that also the challenges, the unique challenges that they are facing. And community is very important. So yes, support, trust, support, time, and not only big events, because that for everyone, but especially in rural and non-urban areas, is the key for a strong community, for trust, and for culture, and a lot of good things more. Oh yeah, and last but not least, to say a few words about our main outcome. One is the cultural policy proposals that had been released last year. They're also available on the In Situ homepage for download, and they cover both the EU level and national and regional level for the 6 lab areas. It was so great to have been able to work together with all of our In Situ colleagues, because that proposal is not only the result from our work, but the result from, I would say, everyone's work come together in this. So we got a lot of feedback from colleagues and their input that came together in this. And one that is being released, the handbook on policy. This combines the innovation part and the cultural part, and tries to give a more practical, methodological toolkit thing for practitioners. And yes, that's going to be next month. Thanks, Nancy. And will also be downloadable on the In Situ homepage. And yeah, thanks for having me. Have a great day.
Thank you, Helena. The last speaker was the only one to keep the time, so I'm very sorry this first job of moderation didn't go as well as expected. But if Ieva permits me, because I don't want to promise a quick round of questions and don't, okay, 5 minutes. So I will open the floor if there are any questions, any comments from the audience. I hope you are not too much willing to go to the break, that you are, not, you are not willing to pose the question just because of that. So I will leave an awkward silence. Yes.
Thank you. I'm Baiba from Latvian Academy of Culture. Thank you for all presentations, and I have a question to André. You spoke about these separate policies on both ways, horizontal and vertical level. Did you find any solutions how to connect them?
No.
Okay. Yeah, that's a very difficult question, obviously. Yeah, as you stated, it's very interesting to see that not only the policies are in silos, with various sectors separated, and also that they do not make the connection between the different regions, which is a pity. So the possibility is to have kind of labs at the local level in order to share good practices between different areas and different people, and to put them here. Today, that's the only solution. We could invent, I guess, in the future, policies which are really more grounded and which are really focusing on bottom-up solution. But when I see that now there is a project to skip the leader programs and to suppress them, I think it's a very, very, very bad news. It's a very bad news, because the single project which was taking into account the advices of a local population, the projects of a local population, now the EU want to suppress it. I guess that's a very, very bad news. And this is a very bad news also regarding all the problems in the peripheral areas with the extreme votings and all these kind of things. So it's not a solution to cut the way for local population to express. I think we are going in a wrong direction today. So I'm not pretty optimistic.
Hi, hello. I also have a question. I would say it's for both André and Helena, but maybe even Nancy. Regarding the quantitative and qualitative indicators, if we push forward quantitative indicators, the rural and small areas will never achieve something that is relevant for big national or international politics. And so somehow my question is, how do we push forward the qualitative dimension and the quality of relations that is created within these communities, and the necessity to put focus on them rather than on the big numbers, which will kind of justify investment or whatever in these fragile spaces which we all need. Thank you.
Okay. So thank you. I think we have a great opportunity nowadays with artificial intelligence. Yeah, I will tell you why. Because you say about quantitative or qualitative indicators. In order to build those indicators, you need a lot of data, obviously. So this means you have to make inquiries at the local level, you have to make interviews, you have to make all those kind of things. Also, you have to ensure that your panel is right, is properly assessed, and so on and so on. Nowadays, with the artificial intelligence, we have an opportunity to assess directly for the need of local populations. For example, if you made interviews, you made reports at the local level, usually you cannot identify, you cannot analyze them. Now, with the help of artificial intelligence, you can go deeply, locally, take into account the will and the needs of local population if they are able to express them, and then to build indicators. You don't need to enter into all the details of econometrics or those kind of things. And if you are good enough, and if you are good enough to control those intelligences, we'll have opportunities to grasp the information from the ground.
Delayed. Okay. That's a difficult one to follow. I was just thinking, we did we did a European Union roundtable, policy roundtable recently with a number of different departments involved in policy development, and we were asked for quantitative indicators, and we said, there are databases out there, and actually our partners whose expertise was in innovation statistics did an amazing job of pulling out from what exists what we can know, and then identify that there are huge knowledge gaps that it doesn't reflect, but they're still looking for numbers. But the other thing they asked us was for examples. They wanted positive examples. They wanted sort of like, what is the answer? What is the best practices out there? We don't have our case studies written up like that at this point, but it was clear that they wanted both the numbers, because they needed that, but that also the qualitative aspect of explaining having the narratives to tell the story in a short way was also very important. So I think we have hope that's not, and I think there's a growing realization that there is such a thing as qualitative indicators. You don't hear too much, but and we can look on that front too.
And also in the whole in situ project, we strongly believe that if we change one person, we change the world. So, and the quantity and qualitative indicators are important. The more important is that if somebody sends us a message after 4 years or 2 years that they have earned their first million, or they have gained incredible amount of international visibility, or they have opened up 2 or 3 new non-profit or profit-making ventures. So that's really, really a qualitative indicator, Antonia. So thank you very much.
And just to add very, very short, one of the proposals was getting, not rid of, but kind of not focusing on numbers too much, but having, for example, in funding programs, a part of where you're not reporting about numbers, but having a text where you can explain what happened, not only to talk about it, but also to reflect yourself. And I think that's a thing that AI can't do for us. Writing is also a process of thinking, and I think it's very important to keep that and to keep thinking about your own projects and keep talking about them, because only then we can be able to see the value that is sometimes hidden by us focusing on numbers, trying to prove something that we can only experience. But thanks for the important question.
So I will, pass the word to Ieva, and thank you to the speakers for this first plenary. Thank you.
So thank you very much for all panelists, and now it's conversation time. Now it's coffee time, and we will take approximately 20-minute coffee break. Please follow signs. They will guide you to the coffee area. You can follow me as well. Kindly be back here at 11:15. As we will continue with our keynote speech by our distinguished guest and advisory board member, Susan Luckman, who has traveled all a long way from the Adelaide University in Australia. So enjoy your coffee and see you shortly. talk, and now we will move to our keynote speech. It's a great pleasure to welcome first our project leader, Nancy, to introduce our distinguished guest.
Oh, we are still missing some people in coffee, I see. Thank you very much. I'm thrilled to be introducing one of the members of our International Advisory Board for In Situ, Professor Susan Luckman, who has traveled a long, long, long way from Adelaide University in Australia to be here with us. Susan is a leading scholar in the field of cultural and creative industries whose work explores the intersections of creativity, place, and technology. Through her research, she has significantly contributed to our understanding of cultural work beyond urban centers, highlighting voices and practices that are often overlooked. And I have to add that it's also taken an approach that really brings the human dimension of the cultural work that is being undertaken in these areas. She is the author of several influential books and more than 100 academic publications, and her work continues to shape discussions on creative economies and place-based innovation. Today she will share her keynote entitled All That is Old is New Again, Place-Based Innovation and Value Creation in the Age of AI. Please join me in warmly welcoming Susan Luckman.
Thank you, Nancy. And thank you, everybody, for being here. I've been in Latvia now for 24 hours. My first visit, and it's been absolutely wonderful and very welcoming. I would also like to thank the conference organisers and especially Paola for having to put up with crazy emails from me for the last month. The conflict in the Middle East meant that it wasn't always likely that I was always going to be able to make it. It's very hard to fly from Australia to Europe without going through the Middle East, and I just want to thank her for the flexibility she had, and Sylvia also for the wonderful support they've given me to get here. So I wanted to start with an acknowledgement of country. This is a fairly standard practice in Australia, if anyone's been or experienced any event that's been based in Australia, to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land on which you live and work. And for me in Adelaide, that's the Kaurna people. Now, this is once a respectful protocol for acknowledging the reality of colonisation. But it's also, I think, in the context of me as a Celt who lives in Australia and researches rural creative industries, an important acknowledgement of the realities of what rural creativity means in Australia. So I'm first going to just explain where I'm from. Not everybody knows where Adelaide is. There it is, the furthest part of Australia to fly from. To give you some sense of the geography, you can fit Europe into Australia. So I think I was 9 hours into the flight here and still over Australia. It's very frustrating. But it's also interesting to note that in this morning's session we heard how Europe's a very rural place in many ways. Australia is not. Most of the Australian population is bunkered down on the east coast and the southeast coast. And so most of the landmass you see there is very sparsely populated. So it's an important part of the background to the research that I do. So for me, that means as somebody who does research into especially cultural work, creative workers in place, my research can engage with communities such as this particular organisation, the Jumpy Desert Weavers, who operate out of Central Australia and provide work for Aboriginal women on country in the desert regions at the heart of the country. And I'll get back to them later in the presentation. But it also means I go to the beautiful rural city of Castlemaine in Victoria and interview a whole bunch of largely, quite frankly, European people making European-style cheeses in rural Victoria as a legacy of migration over the last slightly over 200 years. So I offer that as background to the fact that I know heritage has been a focal point for much of the in situ labs and discussions, and what heritage means in Australia is very complex. It is at once 65,000 years of Aboriginal continuous culture in place, and the legacies that migration and our own histories that we bring to the Australian continent today in terms of creativity. So in my work, I've explored many aspects of rural creative industries and culture, and it was really pleasant this morning to realise some of the connections across this work, and it's something I've once again seen in the in situ work. There is so much more that unites us than divides us, the good and the bad. I do want to say I want to borrow your Minister for Culture, Latvians. I want to take her home. I wish our politicians could speak like that about the richness of culture and creativity. There is still very much an emphasis in Australia on cultural and creative industries as generators of income, and I want to return to that too before I end. So there's many challenges, as we know, to doing work, being a cultural creative worker and artist in rural and regional locations. There's constant trade-offs. There's the fact that you often have to have bread and butter work, which is the thing that gets food on the table but may not be ultimately the most exciting creative thing that you can do. And also teaching is something that a lot of people end up doing in regional and rural communities in Australia and I know elsewhere as a way to generate an income. And indeed, cultural and creative people in rural locations are key resources and knowledge resources and teaching resources, as we know, in the communities. So it's often a fallback option, maybe not your first choice, but the thing you need to rely upon. There's also that lack of critical culture I refer to here, the fact that you can't always necessarily grow your capacities. This is perhaps more true for Australia than it is perhaps for Europe, but you know, if you're working in remote rural Australia, the proximity to a university, you're often thousands of kilometres away. I think YouTube videos, online learning have changed this to a large extent, but there's still that challenge of when you're in a small community, you're not going to write a negative review of the local community's production of a performance. It's just hard to actually have that kind of critical culture to give honest feedback to people. And it's one of the reasons why in some of my work, I really wanted to think about, and I'll get to this slide in a second, the importance of people being able to leave rural locations and come back, that importance of fluidity through communities. But there's also many positives, as we've known. I've often looked at this through the lens of the arts and crafts movement at the end of the 19th century into the 20th century, a response to the Industrial Revolution, and the ways in which place has always been an important inspiration for artists and creative people, and this lingers through to today. And it's this sort of positive aspect of rural creative work and the opportunity of the moment I really want to focus on in the time I do have today. So as I said, I think it's one of the things I've often heard over the years from especially policymakers, people from local governments, is the anxiety they have about losing their young people. I think I've seen this in some of the in situ documents, and I'll just look around the room and see if anyone's nodding, but there's been a real, we need to hold on to our young people and not let them go. And one of the things this person is saying in the quote on the slide, and one of the things that I think is really important for us to think about is, well, especially now in that post-COVID world where a lot of people in Australia thought rural and regional life looks fantastic, it's more affordable, thinking about the porosity of our rural communities and our rural cultural communities and artistic communities, I think is really the important thing here. It's not to hold on to them so they never go. It's about how when they come back with the knowledges they got, the networks they got, the education they got, and the experience they got elsewhere, do we quickly bring them back into these communities? And the same is true for incomers, people who might be new to a community. Australian rural communities can often be fairly closed, and those that have been the most able to innovate and to really build their arts and cultural and creative sectors are the ones that have been welcoming to new people and incomers. And so I think that should perhaps be more of a policy emphasis rather than holding on to the people we've got. Let's think about how we can actually grow and build the community we have. So exactly what does innovation look like in these kinds of rural contexts? And we'll hear multiple perspectives on this. But I know in a lot of my work a particular challenge has been what expectations people from outside rural locations or non-urban locations bring to the kinds of work that is done in those places. And I've mapped out 6 key pathways or 6 key relationships in that slide, and I hope the text is large enough for people to read. And a key pressure for much of this is the fact that often it's a tourist market that a lot of people are selling into directly in location. And often tourists and visitors are looking for the opposite of innovation in a way. It's what we might call more traditional creative goods and services and visitor experiences. And likewise, more distant creative markets might have presumptions about the kinds of creative goods and services that people are likely to get from rural areas. But these kinds of markets can be fickle. The fact they almost didn't get on an aircraft shows how, if you're facing the tourism industry, it can often just takes one global event to make that really complex. So the most successful creatives I've encountered in rural and regional locations are the ones that are operating across at least two of those kind of sectors to diversify their markets, to understand how they can protect themselves. But to get to the title of the presentation, in the short time I have available today, I want to offer a positive lens, as I said, for which to consider what innovation might look like as we move forward in the rural creative context, or the non-urban creative context. And it's flagged in the title of this paper, All That Is Old Is New Again. I think non-urban creative communities and artists are well placed to respond to the growing demand for the authentic in an increasingly disrupted world. I first wrote about what I referred to as the aura of the analogue in 2013. And in fact, looking back over my work, I'm starting to feel incredibly old. But anyway, I've been at this for a while, in the context of the rise of craft and the artisanal. But we can now see wider trends around this, even in animation. We recently, my research centre, had the launch of a new short film piece, and it was stop motion. And I know in Australia, stop motion's having a bit of a moment because it's a bit of an antidote to AI or slop, which is a lot of what's out there. So stop motion actually refers to something in the real world at that moment of image capture, and is actually having a bit of a renaissance as people sort of move away from the aesthetics of AI to have things that really resonate and clearly indicate that they're not AI. So the aura of the analogue is about the return of traditional practices and material cultures, and this includes material media cultures. And so please don't take just my word for it. Hopefully this will work. The media at the moment is increasingly full of, especially among young people, the desire for both 90s nostalgia, the pre-digital age, as well as a desire to actually connect with the material world, with a sense of that authenticity, of the real, in a world dominated by AI. And this is a space that I've been writing in for a little while now. Why, when it's actually enabled by digital technology, are we seeing such a return to an interest in the material? So to return to what this means in terms of innovation, and at least in the spheres of making that much of my research is concerned with, I want to return to another idea that I've been working with over a number of years. And may I suggest that in a world of AI hallucinations and mass-produced goods, the local itself is a source of innovative uniqueness. I've previously referred to this as creative terroir, borrowing from the French reference to terroir as a source of uniqueness to French wines. Likewise, for creative terroir, the harmonies within a locality are not simply about how food and drink production result in products that take on unique qualities of place, but we can think about this in terms of craft and working literally with place, clays, levers, metals, stones, silicas, pigments, fibres, and their affordances. Materials and their textures and colourways also, and from the same location, often might seemingly conflict but work harmoniously. And so while I'm talking about craft there, in principle this can be extrapolated out into other areas of rural creativity, be it visual arts, dance, writing, sound and music, photography, film production, as well as obviously artisanal food and drink, which are often linked with these forms of creative expression, especially in terms of local economies. So this can clearly have a heritage side to it, including as a source of relevant knowledges. Creative terroir can be also a source of innovation, bringing new products to new markets. So some quick examples from my own work. I feel I need to explain where things are. Tasmania, island state off the bottom of Australia, and very much a proud place because of that. It can be very expensive to get to from the mainland. And often they're overlooked on maps of Australia, and it's a source of much annoyance to Tasmanians. But Tasmania is a beautiful place. And one of the people I spoke to in my work, and he's still going strong, which is wonderful, is furniture maker and designer Scott Van Tool, who seeks to evoke Tasmania in his work, but not in a sort of twee kind of tourist market way. To quote how he seeks to do this, I don't want it to be that overt. It might be through form, so a form could be a reference to a dam wall in the Gordon River Dam, and it's a double curvature wall, and he's got this beautiful series of metal sculptural pieces for the home that evoke that kind of design, that kind of space. And so it's very engineering based around the local hydroelectric scheme, quite frankly, and it's called the Turbine series. Or it might be through, in this case that you can see in the image here, through materials. It's very Tasmanian. It has a GPS location of the quarry on the bottom, which is what you're seeing there. So that idea of knowing exactly where it's come from. I love that idea that you are literally owning or can hold a small piece of Tasmania. To return to the jumpy desert weavers, and I need to explain, they are pretty much, well, I'm trying to get my hand there, they're a huge, taking up a huge amount of operating across a huge amount of Central Australia, going across 3 jurisdictions, Western Australia, South Australia and the Northern Territory, a very large landmass. The jumpy desert weavers. Jumpy means dry glass in Pitjantjatjara. And the Jumpy Desert Weavers was formed by the Nagayajara, Pitjantjatjara, Yakanjatjara, MPY for short, Women's Council to enable women in remote areas to earn an income from their fibre art. It's a social enterprise and it represents over 400 artists from 26 different communities across 3 states, 350,000 square kilometres. The hundreds of women working in 26 communities making woven products for sale or art gallery display for Jumpy at any one time are not only inspired by their local country but literally weave it into their products, incorporating the local grasses which are cultivated, collected and treated for this purpose. At the time I last spoke with them, they were both contributing to the Australian contribution to the Venice Biennale, as well as advancing the products that they make for domestic sale, which is a key part of how they make their income. And all of it is very much based in place and an understanding of their local area and sustainable practices, and yet is valued in a global marketplace, but it once enables Aboriginal people to remain on country, earning an income, working with traditional practices. And interestingly, like other arts centre models in remote Australia, Aboriginal arts centre models, it's an interesting process of translation. It goes from the more traditional practices and cultural practices through to the global market, and that's often mediated by non-Aboriginal people. But the actual production itself and controlling what goes out, what images, the stuff that we can buy outside of communities is not the secret, sacred stuff often that communities will keep for themselves. There's all sorts of complex protocols there. But it is at once something that can just move from very deep understanding and embeddedness in country to that global market. And does so very successfully. More specifically in the local area, major town or city, Alice Springs, we have another designer I want to speak to. In Alice Springs, it's a city of 25,000 people. It's almost the same as Valmiera. It's an iconic place at Australia's heart. It sort of had to be there, even if it, as a city, we need something in the middle of the country as a place to get petrol and to have as a base. And the landscape and country, it's absolutely symbolic and iconic in Australian cultural life. And its landscape is key to the practices of James B. Young, a shoemaker and outfitter. And it's 10 or so years ago, James and his partner, also a designer, Elliot Rich, then recent graduates, took an extended time out to go camel trekking in the outback, as you do. The trek became a significant personal journey for them as recent design graduates, and it was a personal journey through place and its possibilities, when they set themselves a challenge of making their own equipment, which included saddles, bags, swags, etc. And the practical experience of making in place today informs the professional design practices of both. An integrated craft terroir is certainly evidence in James' bread and butter higher turnover product, camel dubbin. Oh, my apologies, I'm still in. There we are. Camel dubbin, which you can see here. Camel dubbin is made by from boiling down the fat that is in the camel's hump. Camels ended up becoming quite going wild in Central Australia. They were used for a lot of the early exploration by Europeans through the centre of the country, using Middle Eastern expertise. And as a result, there's actually quite large remnant camel populations. They're often killed for meat, and the hump is something that is surplus to that process. James ended up figuring out you could boil that down and make a dubbin to use on his leather products that he's making. And this is a product that just is one of his most prolific lines and very much is unique to place. And also to that sense of using what's available and to not having any waste. Today, his leather goods, especially his shoes, there's a wait list for his wait list. He's making shoes that are worth thousands of dollars for the global market, and both he and Elliot are still working out of Alice Springs as international designers, using the inspiration of what is a very remote part of the world in their design, which is giving them a unique edge in the global marketplace. And a very clear example of what I would see as creative terroir. So finally, and perhaps a little bit more depressingly, I want to come back to near where I live. The York Peninsula is, I don't know if you can see it on the map, it's this sort of bit of peninsula coming out that looks a little bit like Italy as a prong. The reason why this is a little bit sad is that I've just started a current project that is working with women on the York Peninsula, and there's also going to be 2 other case studies, one in Queensland and another one in South Australia in the Riverland, to co-design creative spaces for rural women. A lot of the communities that we're looking at have spaces for the people who identify as male in the communities, especially their men's sheds, but the women don't have any spaces equivalent. So we're co-designing them, and the York Peninsula is very rich in arts and creative activity already, like the lab sites we've been talking about and hearing about and will continue to. But much of this is funded by disaster money, by disaster relief money. And I think this is a big trend that is at once sad, but also an opportunity for rural creatives to lead the way in. So they've been doing a lot of work, initially funded by bushfire or wildfire recovery money, and more recently in South Australia we had an unprecedented climate crisis generated algal bloom outbreak, which was, I've got to stop, I might cry at this point. We've got beautiful, a bit like Latvia, we have beautiful beaches, beautiful sea, and this outbreak is like an underwater wildfire. It killed everything from the apex predators of great white sharks through to the seaweed, that the kelp beds that everything relies upon. And we just watched it unfold. Animals just were dying in front of us every day, and it's been horrible for the last 12 months. We're moving away from it, but one of the things that happened on the York Peninsula is they have some lovely stingrays, which are not as nasty as they sound. They can be quite friendly, and there were a couple that hung around one of their piers, and people named them. The community knew them, but then the algal bloom came, and they lost them. So they've been working with money they're now receiving, because this is obviously affecting the tourism market and the local economy, fishing quite a bit too. They had a beautiful festival that you can see here. What they're making there is a lantern named after one of the rays that was lost, and they went and did a community festival, spirit release, grieving, acknowledgement, as a way to try and move on and to heal. And I think one of the things that this work also points to is the importance of bottom-up approaches to creativity in rural areas. Adelaide, where I'm from, has the world's second largest arts festival after Edinburgh, but it's mostly about us bringing in people from around the world, which is wonderful, but it takes a lot of the energy and space and money out of the scene for local creatives. Whereas what I'm seeing on the York Peninsula is a real investment in festivals and support for local people. But to just start moving towards a conclusion here, with this in place creativity, there's a real focus on arts and wellbeing. And this is something I've also seen develop across the In Situ project, a shift from that emphasis on money, creative industries, to the role of arts and culture and creativity in community wellbeing. And I think this is something, certainly in Australia, we're seeing arts and culture being looked to increasingly to fix a lot of the ills of the world as we move into very complex times. How am I going for time? Good? Excellent. Okay. Beautiful. Thank you. So to end where I began, in acknowledging First Nations Australians in using creative terroir as a means by which to think through what raw creative innovation is and can be, it would be remiss of me not to recognise that this kind of working with place, working with local materials, ideas, stories, is precisely what Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander Australians have been doing for millennia. For after all, as this quote says, First Nations people were amongst the first scientists, astronomers, engineers, musicians, navigators, storytellers, farmers and more. And these knowledge systems are grounded in careful observation, experimentation and deep connection with country, and in the Australian case that is more than 65,000 years old and continues today. Indigenous innovations continue to inspire new technologies and guide sustainable practices today. So what does this mean for us, potentially? One of the things I often find quite frustrating about the use of the word innovation is its focus on the new, and we heard about this a little bit earlier, and its focus on technology. And technology very narrowly defined as digital technologies. I was really grateful for Nancy putting up the alternative definition of innovation that In Situ are working with. And so thinking about creative terroir, thinking about First Nations approaches that are very much not just about the future, they are grounded in the past and the present. May I suggest that we need to think about innovation increasingly as something that is both place-based, grounded, informed by the local, sustainable environmentally and socially. We've already heard a reference to this language this morning, but it involves stewardship of place, not extraction with no thought to the future. And I say this as somebody who comes from a country whose principal source of income comes from mining, often on country, or always on country, and often destroying Aboriginal sacred sites and artworks. Attention to generational skills sharing and continuity, the hybridity of old and new together, not just fetishising the new as inherently better, social benefits, social enterprise, community well-being, respect for intangible cultural heritage, and just FYI, Australia has not signed on to the UN declaration around that. Bottom-up, not top-down place activation. I know in the case of Tasmania, the government are very big on supporting an image of Tasmania as artisanal, but they almost, in their language, champion the fact that most artists are edgy, poor, the things that actually make life really hard as a creative worker, and to hear your own government sort of championing this kind of edginess just seems quite strange, or just taking for granted that you're often working in quite complex ways. And authentic, a word that just keeps coming up in so many circles as a response to that AI moment, and just the complexity of understanding what truth is in the current moment. So in many ways, this arc of development I've been seeing across time. I've had the privilege of being on the In Situ International Advisory Board. So this is the arc of development, as I said, I've seen in my role as somebody on the IAB. So with that initial emphasis on creative industries, and I have to say Australia really drank the Kool-Aid on creative industries. Before the UK government ran with it in 1994, we had a major national cultural policy came out called Creative Nation that was really all about the hardwiring of what was then called communications policy, i.e. the internet, with arts and cultural policy. And so we've had a long run of show us the money when it comes to making arguments around arts and cultural policy, which is one of the reasons why I want to borrow, as I said, the Latvian minister and take her home. So with the creative industries moment, we're starting to see that moment is really no longer working. Our friends in government still ask us, show us the money, show us the stats. Our statistics only count your main job last week, the national statistics, which does not capture most rural creative work or creative activity. It doesn't count unpaid work, volunteer work, second jobs. And so showing the stats is useless. So I value that discussion this morning about the role of AI perhaps in making the case for more quantitative storytelling. So With the creative industries movement seemingly giving way in many national contexts, a greater policy emphasis on arts and creativity as the answer to a multitude of individual and collective social problems, it seems timely for us to boldly champion a new set of values to underpin understandings of innovation moving forward. And I've mentioned just a few there, and I just wish to end on that. Thank you.
Thank you very much for the inspirational speech. So we still have a couple minutes for questions.
Yes, thank you, Susan. Aleksandra Nemko, University of Turku. I'm very appreciating this place-based approach since we're working in situ with place-based values, place-based emotions. But while I was listening to you, I was keeping thinking about how we can balance this search for a place-based authenticity and the crave for authenticity, which can actually lead to fetishization of natural materials and this extractivism of authenticity over production of the authenticity. And also in the regional aspect, let's say, it might lead to colonization or colonial practices as according to local cultures and local cultural resources. So how can we counteract this? Because, yeah, it sort of comes together all the time.
Thank you for that. Excellent questions, both. I'm also just going to flag now, I'm hearing impaired, so if I do weird leaning ins, if you talk to me, that's because I'm trying to get my good ear towards you. With the first one, the fetishization of local materials, and it's interesting, we're from Turku and Finland, and I can see ways in which a lot of the work that I've been doing connects with what I've seen from the craft scene in Finland. I was mostly talking about craft there today because that's where most of my work's been, but I think it's more about a language was used this morning around spirit of place. And so when I was referring, thank you, when I was referring to ways in which other forms can embrace this idea, I was thinking in many ways of the Bangarra dance troupe, which are an Aboriginal dance troupe in Australia whose work is also about storytelling, movements. It's about a richer understanding that isn't necessarily about material objects. So I think there are ways in which we can do this that are not always about that focus on the local, the materials and extraction, as you said. And I think the example of Dublin I wanted to give as an example of how people are working with a material that is otherwise going to be discarded and unused. So I think an attention to the ways in which things are sourced, obviously, is really important here. If something's going to be thrown away and not otherwise used, there's an opportunity. But we're not going to go out and... I'm trying to find some nice language here for killing camels, but let's just say we are talking about killing camels. We're not going to go out and do that just to get the humps. You know, we need to think about this is already a relationship or a process that is underway. How can we make use of things that are otherwise not being used in the ecosystem? So I don't know if that's a perfect answer. I have written elsewhere on all the kinds of ways in which craftspeople are seeking to reduce the material impacts of their work and reuse of materials, not sourcing new levers, for example, but going into second-hand shops or finding other ways, old furniture, finding other ways to source materials is also an important part of that. And then the terroir can come out in what you do with that. So for the people in Alice Springs, it could be about using a second-hand leather from maybe elsewhere, but to do work that has the form that is inspired by local places. Because we can also, you know, part of the local resources of place are also the materials that have ended up in that place. It's not just the natural materials. The second part was colonisation and appropriation. That is a big one for us in Australia, and I could go into all sorts of detail there, but largely from where I come from, things have to be led by, owned by, controlled by the relevant First Nations people. You can't just go in and say, I'm really inspired by this as a white person and I want to write that up and do that. It's all First Nations led. There was actually a map of all the various national or language groups of Aboriginal people in Australia. I wanted to show you alongside the map of Australia, but you have to get cultural permission, even if you're doing it as a school project, to reproduce that. I unfortunately only got the email starting to grant me that this morning. So I couldn't show that, but I was going to respect that. You know, you have to really abide by respecting the people who have that knowledge. So that's, from my perspective, that's how we do that.
One more question.
Hello. Sorry, how you say the problem, I think, is about values and how we rethink values. So how you think this possible to rethink values in this global world? I know that is through the education, but what is happening in universities, we don't know very well what is happening. And the second is about thinking. We need to think local, but I think we also need to think global. So we need to balance between this global and local. So what is your view?
Thank you for that question too. I was actually thinking this morning, how political will I get as an international guest on the other side of the world? I at once can be a little bit frustrated by this shift to an emphasis on arts and health. I've had, in my research group, we've had local governments come and say, oh, we're about to retrench a whole lot of workers in this remote location from this extractive industry. Could you please come in and help them get jobs in the creative industries? No, there aren't that many jobs going. Plus, why is it the job of arts and culture to clean up the messes that other industries have made, and other economic settings have made? So I often get angry at that, but I do think the shift I can see in Institute's work, the shift I'm seeing in Australia, is that there is a demand for arts and culture and creativity for the kind of community building, well-being, health, inclusion practices that many people are crying out for in this world at the moment. So I actually think, while being attentive to the fact it's not our job to single-handedly clean up the messes other people have made, that we can leverage that moment to try and get messages across around the importance of arts and culture. In Australia, this is hard. I know in Ireland, when they got up the basic income, it was much easier to explain why you need storytellers, musicians, writers. In Australia, we're seen as sort of top of the Maslow's hierarchy of needs, and nice to have when everything else is fine. And no, we need to really position ourselves as foundational to what good life looks like, what happy life looks like. So I actually think, in a world where there are so many competing voices and ideas, I actually think progressive voices have not always been as good at mobilising the opportunities of culture and cultural belonging and visions of cultural belonging that are inclusive as perhaps less progressive voices have been. And I actually think this is an opportunity for us to think through how we can do that in order to both withstand some of perhaps the more regressive forces and trends in society, but also to make the case for the kinds of worlds that those of us involved in arts, culture and creativity really want to live in and really want to support.
Thank you very much. Thank you for your wonderful speech and all the questions. So, grand applause to Susan. Our project partner, the European Network of Culture Centres, knows well the importance of cooperation and collective action. We are therefore especially pleased to have representatives of different regional networks with us today. For the plenary session, The Power of Connection, Strengthening Rural Creatives Through Collective Action, I'm delighted to welcome our speakers. Michaela Harisi, European Network of Culture Centres, Belgium. Ella Overclough, Rural Radicals, the Netherlands. Hein Keizer, Area Network, Denmark. Marta Lozano Molano, Wazoo Cup, Spain. And Sabine Vandana, Valmiera County Manor Network, Latvia, one of our case studies. and moderator Silvia Silva, Center for Social Studies of the University of Coimbra, Portugal. The floor is yours.
Well, thank you so much. Yeah, what a great morning are we having here. Welcome, thank you, hello. Hello everyone, welcome again. And yeah, what a great session now with Susan. And we actually were, we talked about this morning, we were unpacking the in situ a little bit, and now with Susan talking a little bit also about respect and resilience as well. And now we are going even a little bit more grounded, perhaps, that I can say. We talk about a lot on the power of connection. We already talked that this morning, the need to be connected and to create community. But sometimes, you know, for a creator in a manor house that we have, or in a mountain village, or in any rural place for that matter, a network sometimes can feel like a very heavy word, right? And just a synonym of more emails, more bureaucracy sometimes. So we now are going to try to unpack that a little bit, and in this session with our guests here. We will have first our guests introductions, then we will have a roundtable discussion where we will also be welcoming some questions from you. So if you want to start to think in some, unfortunately there's not space for everyone to make a question, but that's also why we will have lunch after this session as well. So that's important. I think that, well, before we start, actually, just allow me a little bit of a moment of love. It's, oh, now I can see the difference of hearing. Okay, I have to put it like this, right? So allow me just, a moment of love a little bit. It is my first time out since I had my little one, my little baby. I have two of them. And I have to say hello to the cameras, okay? So, because they are watching, so I have to say hello to my two kids and my partner. So, and just allow me that. Come on. So, I'm going to speak in Portuguese, okay? Olá, António. Olá, Simão. Beijinho muito, muito grande para vocês e beijinho muito especial para ti, Vitor. Okay. So, okay, well, connection is this also, right? It's personal. So I think it's while we're going to now start with our guests today. So, our 5 guests, they represent everything a little bit from the higher level and the more broad European level that we have here. 3 of them, as Ieva really well presented, and then also from the more localized networks with the 2 guests that we have here. So we often talk about networks sometimes as invisible lines in the maps, right? And we were trying to I asked our partners to think a little bit and to bring something with them that is makes those invisible lines visible, and to try to think a little bit of a key question, if we can think. So what is the essence of the network? What the thing that the creators can get from your network that they cannot get anyone else? So we will start to hear from Michaela, and then we go to Ella, and then, I'll forget Michaela. Yeah.
Thank you. Okay, good morning, everyone. Hi, thank you so much for having us here. Thank you very much for welcoming us, Silvia. It's very nice to be here in Valmiera, finally. I am Michael Harisi. I work at the European Network of Cultural Centers, a happy partner of the In Situ project. Very happy to be here. And when we were organizing this plenary, Silvia asked us to provide a picture or an element that captures the essence of our network. A picture is 1,000 words, but which 1,000 words are we going to use for this one? Each one their own, I guess. The literal words behind it is that this is a photo of our last year conference in Kotor, actually, yes. It looks fun, no? I really like this picture because it captures very well the elements of what a network can be and what it should be. It's not just about receiving emails and being in an office alone or, I don't know, feeling the need that you have to network and always do something. It's more about the true connection that is created through our work. And this is also what we try to do, especially in our annual conferences that we have the chance to be together with all of our members. Another reason why I chose this picture is why it's because it also uses 3 elements as our the sky, the mountains, and the sea, as our 3 pillars of what we work on as a network. Bridging, networking, and connecting. Of course, this is a main issue on our daily works. Training and continuous capacity building, support for our members on a more substantial, let's say, level on their work. And advocacy, of course, a huge pillar of our work, especially on a European level. We're a European network, so this is what we do. We amplify voices and bring them on a European level. And also, another element of that picture that I like is how we're all in this together. We're in this big sea, a lot of times with our own issues, but still we're swimming in the same boat. We're on the same boat, let's say, or on the same sea in that picture. Taking part in multiple activities. And these people also represent our flagship activities, let's say, which are a lot, but still on the same sea. So, yes, thank you.
Yeah, so Ella, that's really good. Thank you, Michaela. And this amplifying voice is really nice. Yeah, Ella, perhaps also you can share your, and Ella comes from the rural radicals, and you choose this image, right? And
yes, I did. So my name is Ella Overkleeft, and I'm the founder of Rural Radicals. We are actually a network in the making, so I think it's also an interesting perspective to see, okay, how do you start something like that? But I have experience working in other networks, also on a European level, and they're very valuable. We'll talk about it in a second, but the picture is from a program that we organized called Creative Grounds. This was the first edition last year in Portugal, where mainly urban creatives that want to start a creative space in the countryside can join a curated tour where we visit different typologies of creative spaces, more DIY, more design, resort, etc., to learn from the founders. How do you start a space in the countryside? How do you build community? How do you connect with the local community that was already there? How did you fund the space, etc., etc., to inspire them and to learn for their own projects. But on this picture, we are visiting downtown Palmela. It's in Palmela. It's a little bit south from Lisbon. Where André with the hat on and the thing against the sun, I don't know, has started the space. He bought this piece of land. There was an old pig farm, and there's an old cantina. The cantina is still active, where they work with, where they organize activities together with the elderly from the village. But also they're building a music recording studio, they have a printing studio, they have tiny houses, etc. It's really this multifunctional space, amazing. But when I was looking at the picture, I realized André, he just organized the production of the Shakira concert in Rio de Janeiro. He works as a big time producer from on an international level, and he started this place in Portugal. Then Maria, who's holding the taller lady on the right for me, she's starting a Pilates resort there, also in Palmela, but she runs a big Pilates teacher network internationally. Then there's Fatima, who's standing next to me. I met her to Trans-Europals, the network I used to work, and she is an expert on the EIT KIC, Culture Creativity Network. So, and so then I was like, oh wow, there's all these networks already in one picture. So I found this very interesting. Yeah.
Thank you. And that's really interesting. I think that we need to come back to that again, that dialogue, like networks within networks. And yeah, but thank you so much, Helena. Yeah. And then we have the third more broad area, it's more perspective with the ARIA, a network from Denmark, with Enk. Yeah, Enk, I think you have more than one, so you can switch there.
Okay, thank you. Hello, I'm Henk Keizer. I'm Dutch, but I live in Denmark. What you see here is a castle built of straw. It's about 13 meters high, 30 meters deep. And that is built when we were a group of artists working together in the peer group, it was called. And we were working everywhere in Europe on festivals. And some water for Ella. And we thought of, we try to connect constantly with our projects in what's happening in the world. Till somebody said, do you understand what's happening in your own world? And we started digging in, and I have to confess our ideas about what was happening in our east-north side of the Netherlands was quite a romantic idea about agriculture, about rural areas, you know, where the sun goes down and the farmer smokes a pipe and sings a song for his wife. We started working with the universities and the Ministry of Agriculture, and then found out that it was a totally different world, and that we were not that many artists working in this rural area. We couldn't find so many others. So we became a member of an international network for performing arts, and after a few years we thought of, we have to start our own, because we deal with completely different ways of working, more participative, but our subjects are often not understood in the arts world. So we started a small network called ARIA, Arts in Rural European Areas, and we have some members from Australia as well. So we started exchanging our knowledge, and we learned a lot from each other, and that's what we still do. We work, and we are now wanting to work more, stop all these meetings online, because that was great in the Corona time. So now we are trying to step over to do what we call rural labs, bring together some artists who work for a period of time, that can be 2 weeks, together as a kind of residency in an area where we connect with the local people and with each other, of course, and where we can also learn from each other's methods by seeing it practically and participating practically in each other's work. Here's a picture of what 2 artists already, they worked in Copenhagen. That became far too expensive to work in this big city. Actually, they were looking for a summer house. They found an old school, that's the one in the middle, and thought of, why not? It's not that expensive. Now they have a place with 62 beds, which can be used as a residency, and they can live there because tourists in the summer rent the beds and the houses, and then in spring and in September we have our residency meetings. So now we are getting more and more interested. How can we combine really good art? how can we help the revitalization of the island, because it's stopping a bit. The farmers have to reduce their work. There is tourists coming in, but you get really traditional things. So how can we, with art and culture, help to start up new development? And that's a big question.
Thank you so much, Janke. Yeah, and that's really interesting also that what you mentioned about this share knowledge also, that as an important perspective, but also this impact in the territory that I think it's very common on everyone, but okay, we'll go more there. So we have our fourth, and now it's more localized, as I mentioned before. So we have Marta from the Wazoo COP, and so Marta, yeah, tell us what did you choose, and tell us a little bit about the...
Hello everyone, it's Marta from Wazoo COP. I prepared a little presentation to show some images. Let's see. Should I press? Ah. No. It's a PDF. Okay, we'll start. So hello, it's Marta from Wazoo COP. I'm the president of the cooperative. We are a social cooperative working, that's us. We are a social cooperative working with social and solidarity economy and creative cultural industries to provide positive impact in rural areas. This is a picture of us, our community, but something that is very important for us is resume in these two Sustainable Development Goals, the number 8 about the decent job and economic growth, that this is something that we need in rural areas, and we cover this with the social and solidarity economy, and also the 11th, that is a little bit of culture, a little bit of rural, because they forgot this when they design everything, but this is another conversation. So it will be the creative and cultural industries. As an organization, we work with projects, European projects, Erasmus, Creative Europe, COSME Single Market Program, national projects, funded by the Ministry of Culture, Ministry of Ecological Transition and Demographic Challenge, which is very nice because it's related to the rural areas, and any other funds where we can develop our projects. Let's say that we have a vision and the projects help us to build the pathway to achieve this vision. Also, as we are in the rural areas, we have a challenge with heritage, with abandoned houses or empty houses. We are part of this so famous and so-called Empty Spain. So we have a vernacular heritage complex that we bought, we refurbished, and we have transformed it into cultural places. We also have a contemporary art fund supporting critical thinking art related to culture, community, and territory, which is something that is not always happening in the rural areas, so we are there working on that. So for us, the community is essential. We are a cooperative, so our thing is cooperate. It's everything about people. So let's say that we can, if we have to study our community, we have like two kind of communities. We have the local community, we have this bottom-up approach. Let's say that it can be like all the people in the rural areas. We are located in Valdefuentes, which is Extremadura. We are like between Madrid and Portugal, so you can imagine, in the Iberian Peninsula. And we believe that us, as a community, and I include myself in this, we have the power to do whatever we want to do. So we really believe in this self-help and self-reliant philosophy. So we know what are our problems, we know how to solve it, and if we don't know yet how to solve it, we will discover. And if I can do it by myself, I will find the network that can help me. So this is something that is important. Also, we have the community of practice. At the very end, we are a community. As some of us, we know to do different things, like cultural things. So we are part of the community, we go one step forward, and we create our organization, we do the culture, these kind of things. So let's say that we want to lead the change. We stop asking and start offering. We pass from let it happen to make it happen. That this is something that we really need to do this little change. So for us, cooperation is the key. cooperation as a difference from collaboration that is more in the result. For us, cooperation is like the whole thing, the process, but the result. Because at the very end, we need results in rural areas, in cultural things. The process can be beautiful, but if we are not sustainable, if our projects are not providing the impact, then what? What are we doing this? So we focus on the result, we do this mutual support, we have a focus in long term, we have a common vision, and of course, we have shared values. And as an image, this is one of our places where we are like all communities, like local practice community, local community, in one of our cultural centers, which is Santa Rita 16. The translation will be 16th of Santa Rita, so you don't get lost. So if you go to Valdefuentes, you ask, you will find it. It's the same street, same number. And this is very exciting for us because this is, with the mural painting, with the local heritage, the people is there, and we are having such a fun that you can imagine. So thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Marta. Thank you so much, Marta. Yeah, I think that also this more embedded and local, like involving more in depth the community, but also you mentioned this local and regional policymakers as well as also some key thing here, and the focus on the results. That's also something that it's an important to keep in mind, and yeah. Okay, but more to that. And then, last but really not least, we have also Sabine, well, she's at home, as we know. So, Sabine, it's our final presentation. It has the image as well. So, let us know and yeah, share why this matters. Yeah.
Yes, thank you very much. Can I ask to switch to previous slide, the informational one? Before I start, that previous with the conference info. No, this one. Thank you. If you are curious, what is this picture behind? So that's my workplace. Yeah, that is Valmiera Muiža. It's the manor complex where I'm working for now 10 years. And I am head of the association. So yeah, I want to just show that is my workplace. We can switch to the next. And these are the other manors. Sorry. Yeah, I will tell a bit more about Valmiera County Manor Network. That started 4 years ago and as an initiative for Valmiera becoming or wanted to become a European capital of culture, but it didn't go through. Greetings to Liepāja, good luck. And some initiatives is still ongoing, as this initiative about the network of manor houses. So then there was in situ project when we become as a case study and started to put on some basics from the for the networking and starting to cooperate. So now it's going on for 2 years. I think that we are still on some starting process, like development process, but we are doing quite okay. I think so. And yeah, so we encourage to cooperate different kind of activities, activists who are interested in cultural heritage. We invite researchers, no, they are applying, not we are inviting them, so they want to network researchers, NGOs, historians, librarians, guides, entrepreneurs, some individual activists, or some just local people who are interested in heritage. And what is very important that you don't need to own a manor to get participated in this network. So everyone is welcome, and that is the platform where we share our knowledge, our skills, expertise, our challenges, our some critical points or ideas and desires or some ideas for the next great project or tourism activity or what is in the schedule. It depends on the participants who comes. And yeah, in these 2 years, we have gathered about 20 active manor representatives, but participants are more because not everyone has a manor, as I said. But in Valmiera County, it's not still counted in total, but it's around 80 plus manors in here. So we have no problem with the cultural heritage assets, but we have a problem for like isolation of the managers. So that's what we are offering to somehow improve. And yeah, and it's important to mention that we don't have any legal status, not yet. I don't know how it will be in future, but when we are applying for some projects, I'm using my daily workplace, Valmiera Muiža Association of Culture. And now about the picture. So you can see different kind of manor houses, but they all are quite different because some are, the function is library, for some it's museum, for some it's residence house, just average house where people live, for some it's cultural center, some is school. And that one, as you know, by the tower now, in the right side, in the middle, it's my workplace, and we don't have this main manor house that you mentioned when I say manor. We have different kind of smaller houses there, but quite wide complex, so there is a lot of cooperation in my workplace. Yep, thank you.
Thank you so much, Sabine. Yeah, thank you. And yeah, the importance of heritage as well, and to the spaces and what to use, what to do with them as well, and also what you mentioned about isolation as well. So it's something that we, I think that we actually gather already. And thank you a lot for all of these initial impressions that you shared about your own networks, because we already touch some important themes, and also leads us perfectly to talk a little bit about friction points and tension points and challenges, as it was mentioned as well. One of the key questions relates with identity, right? And the identity of a rural network. Sometimes in rural networks, well, actually, in many cases, when we talk about rural areas, it's referred sometimes in comparison with the urban ones, right? And the question here now is, how do we stop, in this case, the rural networks to being compared with to those on urban areas, you know? And actually, who are we, and when we don't compare ourselves to the city? Because it's also something that it's not coming from the external, but also within sometimes, right? I would like to hear a little bit of a more broader perspective and perhaps a more localized one. So perhaps Henk and Marta can jump in on this, and then we'll move forward. So yeah, Henk, do you want to start, perhaps?
I'll try.
Mm-hmm. Of course.
Because I think it's a huge subject.
I don't know if it is still...
Is it not on? It's on. Yeah?
Ah, no, it's...
I said for me it's a really complicated subject, because what in some of our meetings it's really about, to make clear, the urban arrogancy. A lot of our members talk about urban arrogancy because they feel not heard and seen when it's about their work. It's also when we work a lot cross-sectorial, so when we meet farmers, it's the same. When they find out we are not from the city, then it's okay. We speak the same language, okay. So that is one of the obstacles, but on the other hand, if we apply for a subsidy, we meet a kind of totally other norms, what art is. And often we are even considered that we are maybe not good enough to work in the youth institutions in the cities. That's why we do participative work. So there is a kind of friction in that, and that I think it's often not seen. We became aware of it more and more when we were wondering about the Brexit. How is it possible that the votes for Brexit came from the countryside that profits most from the European subsidies? What is this? So for me, that's in our daily practice always this kind of feeling excluded, feeling not heard and seen. And what we do with our project is connect with people, go there, ask for their questions of their history, their worries, their ideas of a future, how that can be reached, and we use that in the art program. So it's often retelling their stories and their dreams.
Yeah, thank you so much.
First answer.
Thank you so much, Ankia. Thank you for that, because I know that this is a subject that is very personal for you, and yeah, so I think it's really good that you share that. Thank you for, and yeah, Marta, what do you have?
I was thinking that that this comparison that is always happening is happening in our conversation, right? Because in the city, they are not speaking about us. We know that. So one of the things that I consider that can be important is that, let's say that the people in the city, like the whole thing is their world, and we are the other thing. So we are in the periphery, we are in the margins. But if they consider it, maybe it's something normal because they are in the center on their own world, but we are ourselves in the center of our worlds. Why we are considering ourselves peripheral? So, I mean, I don't personally. So one thing that should be important is to look at ourselves, to stop comparing things, and maybe change the meaning of what is mainstream. Because at the very end, the mainstream thing is what is happening in the cities, and it's normal because there are many people there. But for me, I think that it will be something important that would make the change, will be to change this mindset of having, like, let's say, the body in the rural areas, but the mind in the big cities. So if we open our eyes, I'm sure that you have heard, especially with the rural pact and everything, the rural proof or the rural lenses, these kind of things. Let's use it. I mean, it's us who are there or here, or So for me, this would be like the key.
Yeah, no, I think that's really interesting that it's really rethinking what is periphery, right? And yeah, that's I think it's a good take on this as well. And well, if any of you also want to add something, just please feel free if you feel inspired on that. But I also wanted to move on to something that you already mentioned, also here in your first talks, that was about building community and about this connection. And when we talk about this, we also talk about an important thing that is trust, right? And perhaps, I don't know, now we can hear a little bit also this too, with Sabine and Michaela, perhaps, and would you share some thoughts about this based on your experience, because it's something that I know that is important for you as well. How do we build this trust when people sometimes are used to work in isolation? Sabine, you mentioned that this isolation perspective as well, or sometimes in this sense also waiting for directions, right? So how do we move from these passive members to taking a more collective ownership on this? So Sabine, I don't know if you want to start and having a first take on this.
Yes, I can start, because I think that in the rural areas the people are decreasing, so we can know almost everyone. And that is some kind of benefit, because when we try to gain this trust, we get to know them. We share our common ideas or pains as well, and then we start to build this trust. And of course we are not sharing just some bad things, but good practices as well, and we can inspire each other. And when we see, oh, this is working, my neighbor just got some very nice advice, or just some nice project done. Oh, I could do that as well. And I think that this is how can we gain this trust and community feeling. And what I have written down, that we need to, when we attract the funding for the network, there should be democracy as well. Just invite, oh, how we will spend our money now. So this is how we can depend on each other and hear each other. I think these are the most important things.
Thank you so much for that. Yeah, and Michaela, I think you have, because I know that is also something that on the NCC, and based on your experience also, that's something important to consider.
Yes, thank you. We do have a different, let's say, point of view on that matter, being an umbrella network, so a European network that connects all sorts of socio-cultural centers, but also national networks, regional networks, local networks, and it's quite a different distinction. But of course, trust is always a very important issue to address, because as an umbrella network, especially, it comes again back to this: how and why should I trust you? What is the added value that being part of a network as yours is bringing to me, and why should I want to be part of it? So I think that the most important thing that we can do, and what is naturally coming, is leading by our own example, leading through our own work, and being consistent in what we discuss, what we promise, and what we actually act upon. So to come back a little bit on some comments that were heard regarding the differentiation and the comparison, let's say, between the urban and the rural areas, non-urban, I didn't say it. Even though this is how we're using it on in situ. And also in our work. So what we try to do is to have various numbers of access points for all of our members, all of our different members. Also for different levels, national, local, and regional networks to connect, individual artists working on different levels, and also for everyone to have something that they can get value and value from, basically. So just to mention a few examples on this, where we were established in 1994, connecting already national networks at the time, but still the main focus was not on the urban context. It was more about addressing the non-urban context from the start. So this is already a starting point. And already since 12 years now, we have a dedicated working group that is working in culture in non-urban context, which is very active and always trying to, amplify the voices again on a European level, but working directly with our members and external input. And of course, what was developed through In Situ, also in collaboration with SESH, the community of practice, culture and creativity in rural areas, as part of the Rural Pact platform, are just some concrete examples of how added value can be found also on wider networks, and how consistency is key. Like, these are actual proofs of walking the talk, let's say.
No, thank you for that. And also, just as a reminder, that the Rural Pact community, if you want, every one of you can join. You can just go there and join the community of practice that we are talking here. So yeah, if you find lost, just send us an email and we'd send you the directions for that. But that, Mikael, I think that also this added value that you were mentioning, it's something interesting that takes me also to a little bit more about connections in rural areas. That sometimes this networking often happens, you know, in more informal ways, in a fence, over a fence, or in a cafe, or, you know, very informally. So, Ella, I think that rural radicals have this focus on empowering and spaces and communities. So, how I would like to hear from you. How do we support these informal connections and without institutionalizing them, you know, and the soul of them, and how do you build this network that feels like a time saver and added value, right, for not just more bureaucracy, as we mentioned before. Yeah.
Yes, because everybody, if you're thinking of starting a network, then think twice, because it's a lot of work, it takes a lot of time, but yeah, it's also worth it, of course. Let's see, I first want to maybe add to what Michaela was saying about this added value. Well, as I mentioned, Rural Radicals is a network in the making. I'm not even sure what type of network or what it will be, but currently we have around 5,000 followers on social media, mainly people from the urban. So also to be clear, I work mainly with people, urban creatives that want to move rural. And all the topics that come with that, like gentrification, and also, you know, institutionalization of the present community factors already in the country, etc. Those are all things that we are also aware of. But regarding these local connections, I want to give an example that is an artist in residency place on Sicily. It's called Meraki. And they are building. They bought their first ruin building, and they built their first tiny house, and now they're thinking of how to proceed and how to get funding and build the place. It's in the tiny village, and there's also a small bar, the Jolly Bar in the town, and so it's just a small Italian place, and so, but because they are there and they bring international people for their activities, the people obviously make use of the Jolly Bar, and the connection between them and that local bar is very strong. However, they don't impose anything to that bar, or can you make a different type of sandwich or whatever, you know, they just keep doing their thing. But of course, because of the visitors of the residency, this bar, the income will grow. So the business will develop in somewhat or form, and that is and then I think, yeah, so I think it's a matter of not interfering too much, but it will grow and it will change organically, but to keep the connection in an original way, let's say, is very important.
Oh yeah, thank you so much. Yeah, and also that, yeah, this rural and urban dialogue that you put like a more external and with like inside, and that's really interesting also. And then it relates me also to what I wanted to have in mind to ask you. That is, we were talking about more from the inside and these connections from the inside, but also from the external relations or even cross-sectoral connections. I was wondering, and actually I would like to hear all of you, and a lot of the questions were I wanted to do, but this will be my last question here. So next I will gather some 2 or 3 questions from you, the audience. So if you have, be prepared. So I would like to hear from you all now actually about this. So this more cross-sectoral connections and more external relations. Do we need like CCI-specific rural networks actually, or should we cluster with existing ones, right? Or also in this sense of do we connect culture with other sectors like these rural networks, right? With other sectors like agriculture, technology and tourism. How do we connect without losing the essence of the networks. So I would like to hear a little bit all of you. I don't know, perhaps I can challenge Marta to start, and then we'll go.
I will say that comparison create specific or inviting the others, why choose if we can have both? I mean, let's have our own so we can discuss our, let's say, specific problems, the things that we are dealing because of our characteristics. And also invite them because we are always the others. And it's like, you know, it's like, for example, in our particular case that we are, I mean, very lucky that we can participate in many things at national level, groups with the Ministry of Culture, etc. And we are always the only rurals. And every time, you know, it's a good opportunity to, you know, to say we are rural and, you know, always to put over the table our challenges. But, you know, we don't have to be always the others. So this thing is like, okay, if you're talking to Marta or to the people from Huazocop, when we speak about culture, we're speaking about rural areas, okay? So we can expand the meaning of the things, so we are all inside of the definitions. That would be my point.
No, that's a great point. Thank you for that. And Sabine, I don't know if you want also to jump in on this, on your experience on that. Yeah.
Yes, as our Manor Network participants are very diverse, so they come from different kind of sectors, but as Marta said, we have this one theme, the cultural heritage that connects us. So I can see the opportunities to make stories about it together from different kind of sectors, and I think it's the key of success, because then we can speak with different kind of target groups as well, who are connected with these diverse sectors, and make something interesting together, and make some solutions from problems that each of us have, being in different kind of sectors, but that joins us.
Yeah. Thank you for that. Yeah, I can relate to that. I understand that. Perhaps you can go the other way around. So now, Henk, do you want to go?
Yeah, it depends on what we talk about. For me, it's a small example is we have quite some artists in our network that work with subject of food, production, agriculture. It's wonderful to be better connected with the agricultural sector, for instance. And it is super difficult sometimes to explain to a cultural department of a city, when you come for a little bit of subsidy, to explain what food production and art have to do with each other. So, and that really takes years sometimes. So for the efficacy of arts and culture in rural areas, then it would be for me fantastic if there was a more critical mass.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Henk.
Because I also think the advocacy element is very important. You know, we know with the culture is always left behind, right? And we know also with the Rural Pact. And I remember in the Rural Pact meeting in Brussels, at one point they finally admitted rural development is more than just agriculture. And I was like, okay, yes, this is a good beginning. But so I think we are still at the beginning. So I think now it's okay to have multiple voices, but also just be able to find each other and strengthen each other and collaborate. I mean, just like you're doing here with the In Situ program, that is very important.
Thank you for that. And yeah, Michaela, do you want to add something?
Yes, complicated.
Yeah,
last question. Thank you. Now, I think that also the In Situ example is a very good one in this case, because we might be a project that has its own community, maybe a smaller community, but the 12 case studies throughout the project did create some sort of network. I mean, along with the labs, of course, but it was some sort of a rural network, and within that network, even though we saw a lot of similarities and a lot of shared challenges and pains and ideas and dreams for sure, there were still so many differences based on the geographical and territorial uniqueness of the places, because the case studies were, some of them were located on the coastline, some were on islands, some were on mountains. So even within the rural areas, there's so much variety. And I mean, we can even go deeper and deeper. So at the end of the day is, yeah, I think I agree with Henk, is what do you want to achieve? And then you choose maybe the right network in terms of representation. As an umbrella network, again, I think it's more about there is a union, there is a strength in union, power of connection, and the bottom line is how to enhance the sociocultural center, and probably through a more unified approach. But yeah, there's no.
Oh, that's really good. And Sabine, you're feeling inspired. Let's
Yes.
and then after Sabine, we are going to take just a couple of questions there. Yeah.
No, I just wanted to reflect about that culture is in this poor role between all the different kind of sectors. But I think it's just from the perspective how we look at it, because it's a hard topic, yeah, about the culture overall. But yeah, when we stress out that culture is like very good for mental health, it's more serious now. It's when it's very good for like secure the community and for the safety that we like are patriotic or nationalistic in some best way, that it's quite serious, and it's like a perspective how we look at these creative and culture sectors, and how we describe them. That's it.
Yeah, no, thank you for that. Thank you for that note. And yeah. Yeah, I wanted to share a lot of things, but well, I want to bring you all to the conversation here. Well, not all, unfortunately, but again, as I said, that's why we have lunch. And we are almost there on lunchtime. So I'm going to take just 2 or 3 questions, yeah, and then or reflections, and please keep them brief, short and sweet, and then we can, yeah, have the panels to the guests to respond. Yeah.
Hello everyone, my name is Irina, I'm from Kazakhstan, and I have questions. If we talk about collaboration, connection, yes, what do you think that's, before me, someone asked about local and globally. Maybe we should work together between different areas, not only that this conference include and your program include European countries, yes, and we at Central Region, we already have a rich culture, and for example, Kazakhstan now one of famous country in AA and digital, and we have a lot of experience. What do you think? It will be better if we will be work together, or your experience and your project didn't will be work in our countries because of culture and different identity, or it will be more successful? At first questions, and second, do you already work with Central Asia and maybe you have some experience? Thank you.
Thank you so much, Irina. I don't know if do you want to address now, or can we collect other? Yeah, no. Of course, yeah, go for it.
Well, I just want to say a few things. The topics we're talking about, depopulation, etc., it is global. These are global issues, that's for sure. I mean, also in Japan, they have a word, I think it's Akiya, they have a word for Akiya, it means like empty house or something. So I've done some research in that as well, but of course the reason why we are collaborating as Europeans is also from the policy perspective and funding perspective as well that we are. But let's not exclude global collaborations, for sure not.
Anyone else want to jump in something? No? Yeah, Yank, yes, please.
one of the core members of area, one of our coordinators, is working in your country at the moment. Because there's so much connection. She's from Dirty Protest in Wales. And she recognizes the situation where she works at the moment. So she's working with a team to develop a festival. Secondly, I've been working for Marugeko company. They are based in the north of Australia. Because we found out that the Aboriginals in the north of Australia share a few things with the Sami people in North Europe. And we made a connection, and it's fantastic. Because suddenly you find that somewhere else in the world, people have to do with mining, losing your land, losing your language. Suddenly there are borders that never existed. And that creates really a good, that connection is very strong. And I think only the fact that you feel I'm not alone. And the second thing, what did you do about it? And give them a kind of social perspective for their society. That works fantastic through arts.
Thank you so much for that. And also it brings to mind the idea of the multiplicity, right? So that's how it is complex to bring together multiple actors at the same time. But yeah, it's me. I don't want to. The other question? Yeah. Dorian, I think. Right?
Yes, I'm Dorian from Spain. I have a question maybe to all of you. The title of this session is The Power of Connection. And I think instinctively, almost all of you have talked about a very strong dichotomy, a difference between urban and rural. Whereas I think this is a station already passed. We are completely interconnected. Look where we are, where we come from. We are at a university where people are not all come directly from the clay. We all have urban backgrounds, or most of all, lots of all of us. So I think this dichotomy, this difference between urban and rural, should also be a connection. And it sounds a bit strange to me to underline so strong this difference, whereas we are talking about connections and about creating networks from a university is where we are.
Thank you, Dorian. Yeah, Michaela can go. Yeah.
Thank you very much for the question. And I like this perspective because it's true that sometimes we do focus a lot on the division, let's say, instead of the connection. But it's an essential step to be closer. We need to first identify who we are, where our objectives align, what are the challenges that we're all working on, and then build on that in a sense. So it's kind of a natural procedure sometimes. But this comes back also a bit to the last question that we discussed, should we have different networks or whatever? It is important to have, apart from discussing, okay, do we have different networks, it's important to have spaces where it doesn't matter where we're coming from. It matters that what we're working on is similar goals and similar views and a shared language on which we're working on. So yeah, I think I kind of talked about it a little bit before, but I don't want to repeat myself, but this is how I see it. Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, you can.
Yeah, so it's interesting that you bring this up. I mean, yes, of course, there are differences. The countryside is depopulated. The cities are not. I mean, they're very, very exaggerated. But there are differences that we should acknowledge. And of course, we are all humans, and we're looking for certain values of certain community, of different types of ways of living. But the example that I use for this is there's this theory, the mother of trees. I forgot who it's from, which is about the network of trees and how they're all connected. So under the ground and the mother tree, the city, can only grow if the smaller trees are also nourished well. So this is an example that I grow about this that I use about this interconnectedness often for the urban and the rural. And yeah, I agree. We are past this, but we are still using the language. So I don't know which language to use for this at this point actually.
Yeah, thank you for this. I was maybe a bit sharp when I was talking about it. And I think it is very multi-layered, this whole subject. Because I know farmers who are simply on the world market. You know, but they live in rural areas where they have sometimes other values, or they feel disconnected from or not seen. That is still going on, whatever big farm they have. So it is, I know it is not that simple. On the other hand, I think don't underestimate it. It's a kind of, it's a nice dream, I think, to think that we are all the same and la la la. It's not. We have different tastes, we have a different culture sometimes. And it's simply sometimes in my own, they call it a dialect, but the Neder-Saxisch is a language. You know, that has to deal with, I think, how you are seen by a minority that maybe is not even a minority, but from the cities where the decisions are made, often for us in the countryside, that is a very risky area. And I'm from the Netherlands, where we have a huge political party based on the farmers' citizens. And well, the text that come out from the hate behind their text, what they communicate, you know, that is really, that is fascistoide almost. And that makes me feel afraid, and that's one of the reasons to work with art and culture in rural areas.
Thank you, Ang. Thank you for that. I don't know if Sabine or Marta want to add. No? Okay, so thank you. Yeah, we are on our lunchtime now, so I was a lot of more want to say, but I want to thank you. Thank you so much for our speakers for sharing your reflections. Thank you for being here and shedding some light on this important subject, at least the beginning of a reflection. Please find these 5 during lunch and share your ideas, challenge theirs, and then most importantly, I think that, yeah, connect. So thank you so much and have a good lunch. Bye-bye.
Yeah. Thank you very much. Please don't run away. Sit for 1 more minute because we will have a joint group photo right now. And before that, I will just briefly inform you that lunch will be served in the same area as the coffee. And after lunch at 2:30, we will continue with coherent thematic sessions. These will take place in 3 rooms. 1 here and 2 in the library. There are signs to help you find your way, and our registration desk team will be happy to assist if you need. Each session will last for 90 minutes, followed by coffee break. And then at 4:15, we will gather here again for a plenary session on practical lessons from non-urban creative practices. And now we are having a group photo. So our photographer, Cynthia, will guide us where to sit, how to squeeze a little bit. And thank you, our panelists. You also please join your places. Yeah, please, the first row. Take the first row, otherwise it seems very empty. Could you please a little bit... Yeah.